Hello, everyone, and welcome to this class number one of our 7-part series. We're going to be talking about mastering the money game and learning how to make peace with the energy of money. And so we're going to be going through and having 7 classes to really help you to understand what's next in the world with finances, with investments, like what's happening, because we've been going through COVID, all of these types of things. In 2017 was when I finally decided that I was going to go from scraping by and always, even though I was making amazing money in my business, always being out of money and things like that, and really put a foot forward into doing some investments. So I started with cryptocurrency and the stocks and different things like that. And then I think it was 2019 that one of my dear friends contacted me, and she's like, you really, really, really need to look at some other types of investments and doing some other things with your money. If you want to build legacy, if you want to build something beyond that. And that's actually how I got connected in with, I'm going to do it, Hwaling Coffey. She is a financial coach and entrepreneur who started her first business in her 20s in real estate and mortgage, and then branched out to further help her clients by helping them with all areas of finance. She was able to retire before the age of 40 and chooses to contribute to educate and empower people, families, and business about finances because she wants to improve financial literacy and help to change the world for better. I know that I wasn't taught anything about money growing up. I mean, plain and simple, money was actually one of those things you didn't talk about. I was raised by my grandparents who were, World War II, that kind of thing. And it was like, it was the hush hush. And when I was young, we had lots and lots of money. And then when I was, I believe 5 or 6, my father had like 4 or 5 houses and things like that, lost everything. And then we ended up, later in my life, when I was 9, I moved in with my grandparents. More money issues. They lost their grocery store, had lots of trauma and things like that. So by the time I got into college, the only way I was going to college was on a full ride scholarship, which I got. But it really left me yearning for more. And in my 20s, I illegally made millions of dollars. And if I had done even one tiny thing with any of that money that I'd made, I would have never had to work again, which, in my life. And so I'd made, all that money illegally. And so now I'd come back around and say, I'm finally making great money legally, but there's got to be a better way for that. And that's why I feel like it's so important to share with everyone out there today. So take it over and share what you got to share, girl.
Absolutely. I always love hearing your story. I mean, really the triumph through the trials. And I think everybody can relate to the triumph through the trials. We all go through that, and we're meant to go through that so that we can get better and grow. And that's part of it. Too many people spend a lot of time in the guilt and the guilt of what we didn't do, the guilt of what we didn't know. So I'm going to go over some of the keys of money so that now you'll know and empower you to make that next step or that next choice. And yes, it's a 7-part series. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. We'll go through it. We'll leave it at the end to open up to answer questions. But ultimately, my goal is to help you move forward or further in your pursuit to understanding the game of money and empower you to get to your goals and dreams. For me, this is very important because I, just like Melissa, had trials and tribulations myself. I was blessed to come from 2 amazing parents. My mom actually came from another country. And when she came here, she didn't speak English, but she came for the opportunity so that she can make more money so she can send it back home. Now, my father, very similar in mindset, also moved out west so he can make more money as an engineer and send it back home and take care of family. So growing up, both of my parents were working hard. They'd work overtime so that they can make extra money and then send it back home. So they'd work weekends. We just see them working hard, like most families. Now, I learned at a young age because of that money is important, but family comes first. Then fast forward, my parents ended up having a lot of kids. Now, those of you on this call, many of you probably have kids yourself. My parents had 5 girls and 2 boys. Now, it may have been easier because they didn't need as many car seats, but that's a lot in Southern California. Now, they ended up sending all 7 of us to college. Now, before they did that, I remember them having a conversation with us. They sat down and said, girls, we absolutely want to send you to these colleges of your choice. Now, keep in mind, the last 3 of us were going to school at the same time, back to back to back, because we're 2.5 to 3 years apart. So it was boom, 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 boom. And so they had to put out all this money. And 2 of us ended up going to USC. And the other one went to that other school across town. But don't worry, she turned out okay. No, I'm just playing. We love it. We were in rival schools at the same time. But my parents said that they had to liquidate their retirement to send us to those colleges of our choice. So I knew that one day it would be up to us to retire our parents. So now fast forward and we're always taught, you go to school, you get good grades, you get a good education, and you go out there and you get a good job. That's what we're taught. That's the system. And so that's what I thought. Okay, so I'm going to dive into this education. I'm going to get this good education. I'm going to go out there and get a good job. Well, along the way, my dad used to tell us amazing things, like, because he was an engineer, super smart, one of the top engineers at Rockwell, now Boeing, just ahead of his time. He used to get us to read books and develop ourselves. And he used to say, there's a way to make money work for you. The rich people know. Go find one and figure out what they're doing. And he kept trying to figure it out. So then I'm thinking, okay, I'm in a school of rich students and I'm going to school off of one, my parents' last dime, their retirement, and financial aid. So I got grants, scholarships, financial aid, work study, student loans, the whole bit, like a whole gamut. I'm in debt before I even start making money in life. That's how I got my start. I learned I'm in debt. Well, I tried to learn from the other rich kids at the school. Like, your parents have money. What are they doing? I went to my advisor, who was the head of the accounting department, and said, hey, well, where's the money class? How can I learn about money? Because I now have student loan debt. There was a little credit card stand on campus that said free Lakers shirt. I signed up because I wanted the free shirt, and now I have a credit card, and then my friend borrowed it. Bad mistakes. We all make them. Well, I learned you shouldn't lend anybody your credit, because then they never paid it back, and now I have debt. So you learn. But I made those mistakes, and I'm trying to figure out, well, how do I get out of it? And how do I learn how to make my money grow? Well, my advisor said, we don't have a class like that. And I said, well, he goes, go take econ. And I said, well, I took econ. He said, macro, micro. I said, I took both. Now what? He said, I'm sorry, we don't have a class like that. So then I kept thinking, my dad taught me, go find what the rich people are doing. So it was a hunt. And then I get out of college, and unfortunately tragedy struck my family, and we lost my father shortly after I graduated. And not only were we emotionally devastated, because he was our foundation, our rock, our everything, we were financially devastated as well, because he was the main breadwinner and the mortgage was still due. Now, I know I was blessed because I had mentors placed before me, and I believe things happen for a reason, and people are put in your life for a reason. I had amazing people that guided me to be successful in business. I started my first company in my 20s in real estate and mortgage. I was able to learn from the ground up and then start my company. And I met the right people at the right time. And I was blessed. I was blessed to be able to pay my mortgage, my family's mortgage. I was blessed to be able to help my mom retire early, and then help pay for my younger sister's wedding. I was able to do a lot of things for my family because I had guidance at that point. I had mentors that helped me be successful in business. But much like Melissa was saying, she was making a lot of money, but then what? Then what do you do with it? Then I started noticing that my clients were no different than my family, and that we just didn't understand money. And for example, I would help my clients, in real estate, when the rates dropped, they'd refinance their mortgage. And because the rates had gone from 8 to 13%, that's when I started, 8 to 13% interest rate on a mortgage. And people would say, thank you. So the world has changed. The rates started dropping. They dropped to 6%, and that was amazing. Then they kept dropping, kept dropping. Well, I help my clients refinance. I help them consolidate their credit cards, pay off their debt. And then on average, they were able to save $2,000 to $1,000 a month. But think about it. What do you think they did with that extra money? If you answered they spent it, you are correct. Because then they would come back to me and say, can we do it again? We ran up our credit cards. My friend got a new truck. I want a new truck. The neighbor put in a pool. I want to put in a pool, a remodel. So people wanted more. And I was one of the few agents that said, hold on, your house is not an ATM. You can't keep coming back to it anytime you want cash. And I would say, don't you want to retire one day? Don't you want to send your kids to college? And they said, of course. So I said, well, how about you save and invest it so you could do that? And they said, well, yeah, that sounds great. Where do we put it? Well, much like me, I was able to create money for them, but I didn't know what to do with it at that point. So we realized that there are three major issues that most people face when it comes to money. And then I partnered up with a firm that would educate my clients as well as myself about money. And it became a mission for me. because I realized if more people understood this, not only could they buy a house, but then they can keep the house and they can achieve all their other goals, because the house should not be your number one asset. Your assets should be your number one asset. A house is typically a liability if they have a mortgage. So we want to help people generate their assets and wealth and actually talk in those terms and become millionaires. It is possible for a little girl who grew up in Santa Ana with bars on my window to become a multi-millionaire, decamillionaire. It's possible, but nobody told me that when I was younger. So my mindset was of a mindset of, everybody in my neighborhood kind of ends up in a neighborhood like this. If it weren't for my father who kept saying, you can stretch and learn more, find out what the wealthy are doing. So when I partnered up with this firm, I met a lot of people who actually knew what to do with the money and educated me. And then I chose to educate others. So thank you for joining us today. We're going to talk about the three major issues most people face. The first issue most people face out there when it comes to money is that people are not saving enough money. And think about it. You'd agree with me, Americans have poor saving habits, right? What do most people say? Oh, you know what? When I make more money, then I'll save more money. But what do most people, when they make more money, don't they typically spend it? They go out there and blow it or buy a new, bigger car, nicer car, bigger house. So we're used to, in the American culture, used to spending it to keep up with the Joneses, or I earned it. And so we spend more. And we understand that's human nature. That's that's the culture. So what we want to do is help people understand each and every day, we all go to work for that thing called a paycheck. But oftentimes, before we even bring that paycheck home, there's already a long list of bills or line of people waiting to get a piece of it. Now, if we look at the front of the line, it's typically Uncle Sam and our taxes. Then we have our housing, rent or mortgage, car notes, student loans, credit cards, utilities, cell phone, the list goes on and on. And typically at the very end of the line, isn't it ourselves and our family? But if we were to ask any one of you, who is the most important person in that line? Wouldn't you also say yourself and your family? So we want to help people move from the back of the line to the front of the line so that our mindsets, we pay ourselves first and then give it to the other people. Because ultimately, who's going to take care of your family and yourself better than you? Are the banks? Is a credit card company? Is Uncle Sam? Ultimately, the person who cares the most about you is yourself and your mama. I threw in moms. For those of you moms, you understand. We love our babies, right? But we've got to be able to take care of ourselves. Somebody once said, the best way to help the needy or somebody in need is not to become one. In order to help other people, you've got to be able to stand on your own, stand for yourself. So you've got to be able to take care of yourself and save for yourself, right? So that's the first step. Now, we want to help people understand how to build a solid financial foundation. So we go over these 6 steps. How to improve our cash flow. Now that's budgeting. Unfortunately, most people nowadays don't balance their checkbooks. I know younger generations say, what's a checkbook? We just swipe the ATM card and pray the money's there. That's our method. Okay, it's there. It's good. It went through. We've got to understand what's coming in and what's going out so that we're in control of that. Then debt management. Now, if I were to ask you, of course, you can't see each other. How many of you know somebody who's in debt? And even if it's yourself, you can raise your hand. You know somebody in debt, right? And let me ask you, if you were to wake up tomorrow morning and I want you to just imagine, you can close your eyes if you want to, but I want you to visualize, what if you were to wake up tomorrow morning and you were debt-free and all of your friends and family were debt-free? Would the air smell sweeter? Would you actually see the blue sky and the clouds and hear the birds chirping? And maybe you'd have a little less stress on your shoulders, feel a little more relaxed. Now, I'm not saying it'll solve all the world problems, but think about it. What's the number one cause of divorce? Isn't it money? A lot of couples argue about money. What if we can help eliminate the stress of debt? I'm not saying we're going to solve all the problems, but people might be kinder to each other. And this is I believe it's kindness week. So be kind to your fellow neighbor, people you run into in this time of COVID, but just be kind. People might actually be kind if they were less stressed. Maybe they'll let you go first in the traffic. You go first. No, you go first. Maybe people will be nicer. I heard a gentleman actually let somebody go in front of him in line just because it was kindness week. So I know debt doesn't solve all problems, but getting rid of it makes people feel a whole lot better. Then proper protection, because we should protect the things we care about the most. Now, we should prioritize them too. I'll tell you, I think of it like this. Knock on wood, this never happens to you. When I was in college, my apartment building caught on fire. Now, when you have seconds to think and get out, what would you grab first? The people or the things? Now, hopefully you answered the people if you love them, and then the things, but in order. Like you think about, I'm going to grab my loved ones, my family members, maybe the dog, and then the things, the phone, the this, the that. You should protect things in that order. What you would grab, what's most important that you cannot replace, or you try to replace financially in a fire. Now, it amazes me that some people protect their cell phone before their kids. It's just they haven't had the time to sit down and prioritize. Then asset accumulation. Ladies and gentlemen, it's never how much money you make. It's how much you keep. It's how much you keep. I have a doctor client who makes $192,000 a year. He's only 35 years old. $192,000 a year. But he spends $220,000 a year. What's the difference between that doctor and somebody working at McDonald's? He just has more access to debt. And he was foreclosing on 2 houses when I met him. So I helped him get out of a bad financial situation. Now he's in the positive again, but he was making smarter choices because we walked through it. Now, on the other hand, I have another client who retired late in life. She retired in her 70s because she just kept working part-time. Her whole life, she was a paralegal, an assistant, and a substitute teacher. That's all she did her whole life. But she was able to retire a multi-millionaire because every single paycheck she saved and invested. And she was very smart with her money. So think about who you would rather be, the doctor who makes a lot but has little to show for it, or the admin who has a lot to show for it and worked hard her whole life but didn't make a lot of money. Now, you could be both, but it's just a matter of not what you make, it's what you save and invest. Now, then creating emergency funds. Now, we should have at least 3 to 6 months of funds set aside in case of an emergency. And I'll tell you, that was put to the test with this COVID crisis. If people actually did save 3 to 6 months of their income and they had that available, do you think they would have been a little less panicked when everything shut down and people started losing their jobs and everything, became scary? Yes, you can still fear the health factor, but knowing that you have the reserves to not have to worry about work is important as well. Because, health and our mentality and our emotions are connected. So if you're feeling one way and stressed out here, it'll show up in your body and you become more susceptible to illnesses. So creating that financial stability and having that fallback creates a little more confidence in people. So we want to help them be better prepared. And then estate preservation, preserving our estate for future generations to come. Now, many people don't know this, but when Elvis Presley died, he lost 78% of his estate because he didn't understand how to transfer his wealth. But Andy Warhol, the famous artist, was able to save 98% of his estate because he knew what to do with it. So we want to help people be prepared so they can pass on their wealth to future generations. Now, think about it. If people were prepared in all of these areas, how do you think they'd feel? Would they have a little more peace of mind, a little less stressed, confident that they're headed in the right direction? So that's what we want to help them get to, because knowledge is power, but isn't it only powerful when we apply it? So we want to help people not only learn the knowledge, but apply it so that they can reach their goals. Now, I'm sure each and every one of us has that know-it-all friend or cousin who knows it all, but they're broke. So that's why knowledge is only powerful when we apply it. So we want to help people get to that level. Now, another thing, and I think Melissa brought it up earlier, she said, money is taboo. The irony is the people who don't consider money as taboo, who talk about money, end up being the wealthier group because they're sharing what works and what doesn't. Unfortunately, the people who need the knowledge the most feel like they can't talk about it and that we shouldn't talk about it. And this is kind of what my parents taught me too. Like you don't brag about it. You don't talk about it because if you have too much money, people will ask you to borrow it. That's true story. It happens. But also, if you don't have money, then you're ashamed to talk about it. So you never get better. The only way for us to improve it is to actually have a conversation about it. And I overheard people, I was trying to eavesdrop in wealthy areas like Balboa Island. You have father-son conversations walking in the street, and they're like, "Hey, son, did you get that life insurance? It'll help you with planning out your future." And I'm going, "Wow, they're just talking on it about the street." And he's like, "Did you check into those funds? And where are you?" And I'm listening on the golf course. I'm listening. People are talking, "Well, what about this investment? Well, what about that?" Listen to what people are doing who are successful and share that knowledge. Something that happened to me, a close family member knew about some concepts of money 10 years before I learned about it. And then when I approached her about it years later, I said, "Hey, did you know about this?" And she said, "Yeah, I knew about it 10 years earlier when I hired a financial advisor." And she said, "Yeah, doesn't everybody know?" I said, "You never told me." She said, "Well, we don't talk about money." And I said, "Hold on a second. You will tell me about a shoe sale, but you won't tell me about tax never and things that I can use to grow and double my money?" And she said, "Oh, you know what? You're right. I'm sorry." And I said, "Sorry, you lost me 10 years of compound growth." Well, I joke around. That was one of my sisters. But from that point on, she said, "You know what? I commit to talking about money." And we have ever since. And it's helped all of us in the family because now we have a roundtable where we talk about money. And the more we can learn from each other, the better we'll get. That's what we need to be as a society, help each other out. Now, the second issue that we find most people face out there when it comes to money is that people are not putting it in the right places. So we go over concepts so we can understand what's out there. For example, the rule of 72. Now, I know it's a chart, it has numbers, but I want you to get the concept. You don't have to memorize all the numbers, just get the concept. What it tells us is if we take the magic number 72 and we divide it by any interest rate, it'll tell us the number of years it takes for our money to double at that rate. For example, let's say that you go down to your bank and you invest $10,000. And if you could think, what type of interest rate does our bank give us right now in our checking, savings, CDs? If you answered point pathetic, you're right. It's 0.05 typically, or point something. Unfortunately, it's really low. Let's round up and be optimistic to 1%. Here's the math. 72 divided by 1 is 72. So it would take us 72 years to double our money. That's a long time. But now let's say we could have gotten 4%. Years back, they did have a 4%. So 72 divided by 4 is now 18. So now it takes 18 years for our money to double. So let's say we started at age 29 with $10,000. Every 18 years, by the time we're 47, it doubles to 20,000. Another 18 years go by, we're 65, it doubles again to 40,000. Can any of us retire off of 40,000? Not in the US today. We might be able to if we go to smaller countries that don't need a lot. But for most of us, that'll barely pay for gas in the future. Now, of course, the banks don't get rich off of the $5 and $10 fees that they charge. What they do is they take the money that we put with them, the 10,000, and they lend it back to us on things like credit cards or loans or other things. And what's the average interest rate on a credit card? I mean, my clients often say like 16.99, 19.99. I've seen the store cards 24.99, 29.99. Let's be generous and say 12%. Now we got a good rate. 72 divided by 12 is 6. So now the bank is able to double that money every 6 years. So remember, they start off with our $10,000. Every 6 years, it doubles to 20, to 40, to 80, 160, to 320. And then by the time we're 65, $640,000. Well, what do they do with it? They give us the 40 along with a pen or, a stapler or something to thank us for our business, and they keep the rest. Well, let me ask you, would you rather make money like the bank or in the bank? Now, I hope you answered like the bank, because if we only believe we can get the point pathetic that they're offering, we're never going to win the money game. If we can get 6, 7, 8, 9, 10%, 12%, this past year, I just saw a client make 60% in his 401k. So it's out there. Again, past performance isn't indicative of future results. I got to put that little disclaimer in, but people are making more than just 1% out there. So we have to look for it. And if you need help finding it, that's what I'm here for. I teach people how to read their 401k statements, right? Now, another thing we must understand when it comes to money, because we want to help people optimize it no matter where it's invested. Another thing we must understand is taxes. Because when we save and invest, there are 3 different ways that they tax us: tax now, tax later, and tax never. So if we look at tax now, that's our typical checking, savings, CDs, money market accounts, mutual funds, things like that. Anytime we make money, they take money. So in other words, if we earn interest in that year, they're going to tax us on that interest that we earned. Now, that can be detrimental because it happens every year. And even if the market goes up and down, you could have the money one year, then it goes down, you pay taxes on it, then it goes down the next year, you don't have it. You already paid taxes on money you no longer have. So there's a big reason why people like to defer the money, but there's an important reason why to have it in this bucket anyway, for liquid accounts, emergency funds, things that you're going to do in the near future. Then we have tax deferred or tax later. These are the typical retirement accounts like 401ks, IRAs, 403bs, pension plans. In this bucket, we have not yet paid taxes on this money. Then we invest it, it grows. When we go to pull it out, that's when we pay taxes on the entire amount. And depending on when we access it, they can take up to half in taxes and penalties. So we want to help people understand and strategize how to keep more money in their pocket. Then we have tax exempt or tax never. Here, what we do is we pay our taxes up front on our paycheck. Then we invest it, it grows. When we go to pull it out, we never have to pay taxes again on the earnings. So we want to help people so that they can choose where they want the majority of their wealth and strategize to reach their goals. Now, many of us already get access to retirement plans through work, which is great. We want to take advantage of them. Now, of course, if they're matching you and they have a percentage, you want to at least take that free money as long as they match you up to 50% of the dollar. I mean, not up to, but 50% or more of the dollar. So for example, if you put in 6%, they'll match your 6%, 50% and match and give you 3%. That's free money. Take it. We always want to optimize the free money that they're giving you. So now you put it away, it's all pre-tax, you put it in the way it grows, and then you're able to get that boost of money for your retirement. So take that money, right? But we also want to understand that there are most people, when they have a 401k through work or 403b or any of these accounts, most people don't know how to read them. They just look at the statement and then file it away. They look at the balance and then file it away. So we want to teach people how to read all the pages of the statement and how to go into their website and make changes. Like I did today for a client. Right before this, I was helping her understand her 401k and how much she can contribute and Roth versus regular. And we go through contributions, what's the right amount. That's the step by step, because most people just need to understand these things. Now, if I were to ask you, again, you can keep this number in your mind. How much do you understand about your retirement plan on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being, I know the name. I know that I can, I put a certain percentage and then I'll get it out later. 10 being, I know all the sub accounts and the rules and the mutual fund sub accounts. I know all of it. I know what to do with it. I know the penalties. Where would you rank yourself? I want you to mentally think about that. On a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rank yourself? Okay, keep that number in mind. Now, if I were to ask you about your cell phone, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much would you say you understand about your cell phone? Scale of 1 to 10. Now, if your knowledge on a cell phone average is let's say 8 to 9 in the US today, most people say 8 to 9 on the cell phone, and most people say 2 to 3 on the retirement. Which one's more important? Now, of course, we're going to say retirement, but look at our knowledge of it. So what we want to do is empower people so their knowledge level of what they're going to use to retire them comes up, at least the level of our cell phones. Now, there are 3 basic things that can happen in these accounts. Number 1, they could stay the same. So if, they have 100,000 to start, it stays 100,000. Number 2, if they invest it well, it can grow, double, triple, quadruple. That's what everybody wants to happen. Or number 3, if we're not careful, it can also go down in the marketplace. Now, if you can eliminate one of these lines, think about which one would you want to get rid of? Well, of course, the bottom. We all would. Nobody likes to lose money.
The bottom.
Nobody likes to lose money. I mean, the sky is falling, right? So we want to help people do that because most people don't know how. But we have the power to make changes to our own retirement accounts. It's just most people feel they don't have enough knowledge to feel confident about that choice. So we want to gift them that knowledge so that they feel confident going forward. So that's what we do. Now, if I were to ask you, especially in the market like now, it's very volatile. A volatile market means it's like a roller coaster ride. It might make you sick, right? What's more important to you, growing your money or protecting it? Now, most people, they might choose one or the other, but a lot of people choose both. They want their cake and eat it too. And I agree. I want both. I want to grow my money as much as I can. I don't want to lose any of it. Can we have the best of both worlds? Well, Warren Buffett has two rules when it comes to investing money. Rule number one, never lose money. And look, he's one of the richest men in the world. Rule number two, never forget rule number one. He keeps it simple. What good is growing our money if we turn around and lose it tomorrow? We've got to do both. Just like sports, we want to play offensive and defensive so that we can win the game. So that's part of the money game. We've got to learn. Uh-oh, sorry. I just did something. Something just popped up. Sorry. Hold on a second. We want to be able to do both, play both sides of the game so that we can win the money game. Because we saw what happened in 2008. Now, if you remember, the real estate market first came down, and then we had the stock market go down. Unfortunately, in 2008, most people lost roughly half of their life savings in the market. Now, unfortunately, just to get their money back, so if they had 100,000, it dropped to roughly 50,000. Just to get back up to where they started at 100,000, don't they now need to double what's left in their account? They need to gain another 50,000 just to get back up to where they started. In financial terms, that's 100% rate of return. When's the last time most people got 100% rate of return in the market? Unfortunately, it's unlikely. And this is a losing game. If you lose 50%, you have to gain 100 just to catch up. Money is just a game. It's just, did anybody hand us that rule book or teach us how to play? No, we're just figuring it out as we go, trial and error. Well, what we're going to do in the 7-part series is go through each of the steps so that we can build a solid financial foundation, starting at the beginning. Like some keys on budgeting, going into, debt management, going into income protection, going into all of these things, helping people create that foundation that they can feel confident with. So that's what we're going to do in this 7-part series. So this was the beginning. This was the intro. Now, of course, if you want to reach out to me, I know Melissa has my information. The next time actually, I could put a little survey up, or how do I put a link? Do I put it in the chat? Oh, I can't hear. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to
okay.
That
I'll put a little link in the chat first. Okay.
Yeah, put it in the chat. Put a link if somebody wants. If you guys have any questions that you want to ask Hwaling right now, then I would love for you to go ahead. You can put them in the Q&A. We'll stay on here. We'll answer some of the questions for you. And then also she'll put into a chat if you want to speak with her directly about any of the financial advisement stuff that she does, or anything about maybe you have a 401k, or maybe you've come out from somewhere else and you have some questions. That's how I got started, right? I was looking to invest, and I had done, like I said, I had done cryptocurrency and stocks, and I was looking for other ways to protect my money. And not only have I started doing that for myself, but for my employees also, right? Like, so if you're somebody that you have employees, or you are somebody that you own a small business like I do, and I have employees, like there's ways that I can help them to start building for their future, and different things besides just 401k. Like there's other options. There's many amazing things that you can do. And so she's really fantastic around this kind of stuff. And really, this is all about financial security and understanding. The biggest thing that I've seen so far in between 2020 and now is just so many people who had the rugs pulled out from underneath them because they just weren't in a financially stable place to understand what's next. And like you said, if these people had 3 to 6 months of savings, the world would be we'd be in a lot better place than what we were at the start. So you can definitely, put something in the Q&A if you want. She put if you go over to the chat, there's links there for the form for the survey. You can fill that out. And a really great information today. I really loved what you shared. And, I'm excited about the series and being able to offer people an opportunity just to learn, whether they want to do anything more than that, but just to learn, like, what is the next step? Where is that to go? For me, my goal and my thing is that I want to build a legacy. I want something that I can pass on to my daughter, whether she ever decides to stay working for me or not, and my income is going up exponentially. And so it's like, but you're like, what you said is like, income goes up exponentially. And then you're like, where does that end up going? Right. It's like, where is that going? How can I harness that You know, I've never bought a house. I'm like, well, maybe I would want to buy a house or do some investments in real estate or, you know, do some other things in other ways and like hide money in different ways. There's all sorts of opportunities and things like that. And I've been looking at those things. So it's a
Oh,
really great.
and when buying houses, like especially rental properties, I mentioned I went to USC. I got my degree in math. I'm a mathematician. I learned numbers never lie. People sometimes do. So for me, the numbers never lie. And so even in buying houses, because I also as a realtor own multiple properties, investment properties, rental properties, and our own properties. Um, I learned how to tell the difference between a good buy and a not good investment
Yeah.
for both personal properties and for investment properties. I'm helping somebody out right now tell the difference between she inherited a house. Should she keep the house like small reno and rent it and have residual income that way, or cash out, sell it, invest the money and earn residual income that way? Like timing of the market, long term.
Yeah.
I
Well,
run the numbers.
now, like we're having issues with my neighbor, and the landlord was speaking to me, and the woman hasn't paid her rent in 4 months, but he can't kick her out because of COVID.
Yep, because the moratorium. Yep.
You know, you're at a point where you're like, is it worth it? Is it even worth it? And I have 3 or 4 other friends that all have properties that were rental properties and stuff that they're dumping them all now.
Yep.
You know, and so it's like really looking at those types of things. Is it worth it? What's worth it? What's not? And what are the right things? I mean, I started reading when I realized that I was really good at my craft and not good at business is when I started learning about money. And I mean, I did all the, you know, Tony Robbins and the money mastery and you know, Warren Buffett, like started following all the money, like where's all the money and who's making the money and what are they doing? And I started to realize like what I was taught as a, you know, middle class person growing up and what, you know, like they say that like rich dad, poor dad thing, like how do rich dads talk to their kids compared to how, you know, and I realized I was like, holy crap, like the things that I was learning and talking that were taught to me. Yes, self-made millionaires teach their kids. Yeah, oh, I love it. I don't know that book. I'll read that one next. You know, was incredible because it was not something that I was, you know, was doing. And so what I'd love to do, you know, because my daughter's 22 years old and stuff. And even though we've started something for her and stuff, is getting to that age range, because like, God, if I had known this in my 20s, like I said, I made millions of dollars in my 20s. You know, I didn't have anything to show for it. You know?
Same here. If I knew what I know now, and we always say that, all adults, and you're like, yeah, you always say that.
But if we have the opportunity to teach it to them, then it's their fault if they don't implement it.
Exactly. But even helping them and guiding them, like my children, I've started accounts for each one of them that go beyond just college. Like it's your future business account. If you start a company, it's your future, you know, retirement account. If you just stay steady with it. Like I'm teaching my kids how to be millionaires. Yeah. They're learning how to save on their own with their own commission. Like they make commission from doing chores, you know, so little tips on even helping the next generation learn the basics of money. They can start at age 4. Kids get it and they don't have baggage. Like they get the concepts and now they tell other people. So yeah, we'll share a lot more as we go on in the series and we'll have fun with it.
Awesome, everyone. Well, if you don't have any questions, I think we waited long enough to see if anybody wanted to ask any questions. Nothing is popping up. So if you registered for this event, obviously you did to get on here, you'll get the recording, and also I'll send out the link for the jot form too, so that if you guys have any questions or want the survey, so that you can fill that out and get your questions answered. Thank you all so very much for showing up, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Oh, wait, we got somebody said, could you please show the book again? Will you show the book again? Yeah.
Oh, this is the one I'm reading with a group of people right now.
Self-made Millionaires Teach Their Kids.
And it's by Steve Siebold.
Steve Siebold. Awesome. All right.
I gave it as a Christmas gift for my family too.
Nice. I love it. Great. All right. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.